Hello, I'm Ash Sarkar from Novara Media, here for Zed Books. To celebrate the release of Assata Shakur's seminal work, Assata, an autobiography on ebook, I thought I'd share with you some of my favourite things about the book and talk about why I think it endures to this day as a touchstone for writers, critical thinkers and activists everywhere. There are lots of ways into thinking about Shakur's autobiography, and it would be remiss of me not to mention the contributions it's made to legal scholarship, race theory, and of course its insights into the historical and ideological development of the Black Panther Party. But today I'd like to talk about it as a deeply personal text, and how that works in tandem with its political content. Now, I know I'm definitely not alone in saying that Assata, an autobiography, was a formative text in my own political growth. I first read it in my teens, and a lot resonated with me as a young woman of colour, and I learned much more about the specific nature of the oppressions faced by black women under white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. It transformed my sense of feminism and social justice from something vaguely fluffy and universalist into a much sharper critique of power in the state, and this is mostly due to Shakur's thoughtful depiction of her own coming of age as a black, radical, conscious subject. The book's opening chapters on her upbringing in New York and North Carolina interweaves the personal and the political to stunning effect. She writes of her grandparents with great affection, celebrating their everyday acts of bravery in the face of racist aggression, while also playfully skewering the classism and internalised racism embedded in their brand of respectability politics. I've always loved the devastating lightness of Shakur's asides, in particular the deftness with which she notes that the decent playmate that her grandmother had approved of had a habit of exposing himself in front of other children. And for all the incisiveness of Shakur's critique, there's very little in the way of loftiness or superiority in the text. In fact, she ruthlessly lays out her own complicity in capitalist values, recalling being entranced by the bourgeois lifestyle depicted on shows like Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver, and castigating her mother for buying generic brands. She writes, "If Hostess Twinkies were good enough for the kids on TV, then why weren't they good enough for me?" For Shakur, one is not a revolutionary in spite of fallibility, but because of it. As she writes later, "Black people must learn to struggle by struggling. We must learn from our mistakes." Shakur's every observation, critique and insight is steeped in empathy. And that's not just an empty rhetorical gesture, it's a political method. Often liberal discourse mobilises the language of love as a counterpoint to militant organising, but Shakur argued that love, real, conscious love, subverts oppressive power structures. In a later interview, she described the persecution that her family was subjected to by the state and posited the radical potential of love under the gun. "We survived it. We resisted together and we struggled together, and it made us, all of us, much more serious about who we are and about our love for each other." And if we take only one thing from Shakur's autobiography, it should be that acts of resistance, be they violent moments of rupture or everyday self-care, can and should be motivated by an empathetic instinct. The continuation of the mass incarceration of black bodies, racialised police violence and border enforcement, and blood-soaked foreign policy demonstrates the necessity of both Assata Shakur's incisive critique and the polemic power of her call to arms. And the lyricism and the effectiveness of her writing endures to this day. I'll end with a short poem included in her autobiography. It offers a model for thinking about the radical life-writing tradition and also the importance of keeping these texts alive through meaningful political action. "You died, I cried, and kept on getting up, a little slower and a lot more deadly." Share with us your experiences of reading Assata Shakur's work, whether it's your first time or the latest in many, by tweeting at me at @IOCaesar or at ZedBooks. And FYI, you can get a copy from zedbooks.co.uk. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.